Nature Breakthroughs with Dr. Wild Ben Goldman. Conversations with changemakers in a world gone mad. To discover what you need for personal, organizational, and societal change, get your free download of 3 ancient rituals smart entrepreneurs use to bounce back from shifts in the market and inside themselves. Go to www.naturebreakthroughs.com.
Yes, you pull them till they bite down. On the lies that you built from my doubt. I don't want money, I don't want cars, I just want to be free.
There we go. Okay, we're recording. So, welcome to Nature Breakthroughs. Conversations with changemakers in a world gone mad. And we got on the line Andrew Brazington and Nicollette Brazington and Emma Goldman. And Andrew and I have been talking for a while about all kinds of interesting change makers we could have on this podcast to talk about, important changes in the world. And we decided, hey, wait a second, we could actually be two dads with two daughters and talk about change in our own lives and our own families and between generations and, different folks from different races and different states, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a free-for-all, intergenerational free-for-all. How's that sound?
That might be a wave of the future, right?
Well, this is a taste of the past and a taste of the future here.
Yeah, sounds good.
So why don't we start with the next generation? Why don't you two introduce yourselves? Tell us, a little bit about yourself and. Oh, you know what we could do? Why don't we do this? Why don't the fathers introduce the daughters and the daughters introduce the fathers? That'll be more fun. You want to introduce Nicollette, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, everybody, this is my daughter, Nicollette Elaine Brazington. She was born the 9th of March, which is the day before my birthday, the 10th of March, 1996. And I hope it's not too personal, Nicollette. Nicollette was born 3 pounds, 15 ounces. Just a little tiny thing.
Wow.
And
you're really starting at the beginning.
And it was really something because I would go every day to feed her because she was in the hospital for like a month or two, because she's a preemie. And there was nothing wrong with her. Usually they were saying, oh, maybe the eyes developed a little bit, but nothing was wrong at all. She was just tiny. And so she kept her temperature and she gained some weight and then she came home. And that was really something, because that was my first and only child, actually. And
you want to bring us up a little more to date?
Yeah.
What's she doing nowadays?
Actually, now she's a mommy. And she has a daughter who's 5 years old, Sage, Saige. And she's in school. Right now she's in Job Corps, and she'll be going through a culinary arts program, which I'm excited about because that's what she really wants to get into is like health and nutrition and assisting people with, good ideas around nutrition, food. And so I'm excited for her that way too.
That's awesome.
And there she is.
So, Nicollette, you want to make any amendments to that, and then maybe introduce your father, and then I'll take a turn with Emma?
No, I think that he got everything. He got everything pretty correct. My dad's name is Andrew. He's 60 years old. On March 10th, 1960. He is an environmentalist. He's very active in his community. He's always very helpful to his community as far as planting trees and just being active as far as different political activism. He's always put me on the front of nature and being around anything outdoors. Like we've always done things outdoors together. So I know that that's his passion and things that he loves to do. He's very great with my 5-year-old daughter. He educates her about nature and always constantly has her outside and doing something physical rather than just sitting in the house with her, which is something I thoroughly enjoy that he does with her. I don't know. All in all, my dad is he's a great guy. He's always been here for me. He's always been educating me my whole life. So I appreciate him a lot.
That's awesome. All right, let me take a turn. My daughter is Emma Goldman, Emma J. Goldman, and she had a famous namesake. The Emma Goldman from the 20s was a famous anarchist, but nobody seems to know that anymore, so it's good. She can pass for just a regular old Emma Goldman. And she is, I got to tell the birthday. Now I got to tell her birthday, but I think she's a year younger than you, Nicollette, right? Is that right, Emma? I think so. And Emma graduated from Loyola College a year ago. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
In New Orleans, and she stayed in New Orleans where she lives. She's back visiting just this week, but in New Orleans she's pursuing a couple different things. But one of the things is she's working in the restaurant industry, and she's worked in a couple restaurants. Now she's a manager at a restaurant, seafood restaurant there called Basin, and she also has aspirations to teach kids, young kids, I think. And well, she's interested in a lot of different things. Like, we would just spend some time with cousins, and she was the one in the family that said she was going to bring out the crystals. So I know she's into astrology and crystals.
Whoa!
All kind of crazy stuff like that. I learned these things. I learned these things from other people more than just directly. And well, Emma's always the life of the party. I'll tell you that. She walks into a room and there is always a party. That is what happens when Emma walks in.
Isn't it?
She is my favorite daughter. My only daughter.
Cool.
Wow.
Is it my turn? Well, something really cool too. Yeah, like I do like astrology, and we're all Pisces. I'm March. Yeah, we're all Pisces. I love us. Except for my dad. He's a Libra, so he kind of throws it off. But he's like almost. So we almost all are water signs. So that's really cool. So yeah, my birthday is March 3rd. So we're actually like right all in like the same week. But I'm 97, so. And then my dad's birthday is October 21st, 1960. So they're the same age. And he lives here in Weehawken. He's from Philly. Weehawken is in New Jersey, right outside New York. What does he do? He's an artist. He does a lot of different art stuff. When I was a kid, he did more like painting, visual art. Now he's getting a lot into like the spiritual stuff, which is really cool because like, yeah, I like crystals and all that stuff, and it's always seen as kind of like a joke, but it's real life, and I don't know, he thinks it is too. So that's something cool we connect on. And yeah, my dad is a very smart man, and he knows a lot about a lot of things that I don't know if everybody knows what he's talking about, but a lot of really cool, interesting facts my dad has all locked up in his brain. Always ready to spit knowledge to anybody.
Thank you.
He hadn't changed too much. He just lost a little hair. He used to have a lot of curly hair.
I had a Jufro back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Mine goes down, which is
Hard
good.
to believe. So we're living in a time of change, for sure. This is the first global pandemic any of us have lived through. Yeah. And it's probably affecting us all differently. But I don't know if there's... if we see this differently from the different generations. Well, let me put this out there, which is people love to make distinctions between the generations, like that we're so different from each other. And, there's some truth to that, but it also bugs me. I don't know how you guys feel about it, because I feel like there's some truth to it, and then there's some kind of falsehood about it, Like every generation seems like the promise. And every new generation seems like the promise that will cause to change or heal the earth or make things better. And every old generation seems like the problem, that caused the problems. And that kind of generational warfare, generational, generation gap stuff, that takes up a lot of space in the media world, like OK Boomer and all that stuff. But I don't know, it's kind of, for me, I also feel like I can remember when I was your age and what I was doing, and I was doing everything that they are claiming our generation didn't do. So, and there were a lot of us. There were a lot of us doing it. And I know Andrew was doing it too.
Yeah, right down there on Benjamin Franklin Parkway, man.
So, what do you guys think? What do the younger folks think about that? Got any opinions, experiences?
You mean like what it looks like, the differences?
Well, do they feel like we're out of touch, or that that there's some? Well, I guess I packed a lot of stuff in there. First of all, do they think like their experience of the pandemic is really different than ours? And do they also feel like how their generation sees what's going on and sees what needs to be done and how we do?
I mean, for me personally, like, I don't know if this is like a generational thing, but it might be like me personally with the pandemic. Like, I've been working through it. Like, I didn't stop going to work. What about, have you been at work? Yeah, the whole time, exactly. And like, I'm sure both of our dads were more like inside working, or no? Yeah, right? So that's the difference. Like, we were like what they call like the front line workers, front responders. So that's
essential.
The essential workers. Yeah, I don't know, whichever. So yeah, that's been interesting. You know, like I personally work in a restaurant, and it's been interesting to see how customers react to people. Because like personally, you would think that. I mean, I would think like people would be very understanding about stuff, but they're not. Yeah, you would think they'd be like appreciative and like thank you, but not only are they not, but like my job personally is very understaffed, so it's like super busy. Everybody's like freaked out working, but then all the customers are like expecting us to do everything like regular, whereas like it's not regular. There's like half the staff, but like double the people. So that's a difference I've seen. What about you?
I agree in the same breath that the customers have been even more like forthcoming with their issues and problems during the pandemic with things that have been going on. They don't seem to be very appreciative of the fact that we're basically, when we could be at home just like everyone else.
Collecting unemployment, like
risking our health, being out, and they just I don't feel appreciated whatsoever as far as my customer base. Or from a managerial standpoint, I feel as though because I worked like every day for the past couple months. Yeah, it's just like been like, wow, like this is ridiculous. Like I don't get any time off. Pandemic, and everyone's chilling at home, and I'm working every single day.
Where do you work at?
I'm also at a seafood.
Well, it's nothing great. I just have to deal with all the people's problems. It's so annoying. But
one thing I'll say is, because I didn't want her to work. I didn't want her to work at the place because after they opened everything back up, because before people could only get the food once they brought it to the door.
Yeah.
Because people don't wear masks. Fully understand. They need more information about what this is all about, I think. But I didn't want my daughter exposed to that because, you know, she may expose, you know, the possibility of exposing her daughter. And I look after my granddaughter, you know, 5 days a week. It's like, and then my mom is 98. You know? So it's like, but none of us has gotten sick. None of us has gotten sick. I haven't gotten sick. Nope, Mom hasn't gotten sick. Nicollette hasn't gotten sick. They ain't gotten sick at all. So, you know, I don't know where this virus is, but it's not here. You know, and Philly's pretty good about it. Pennsylvania, you know, I don't know. But I just stay to myself. I don't mingle out there like I used to, you know.
Are you guys both in Philly?
Yeah.
Well, not from, but where are you from? Oh.
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
I've always wanted to go there. I love the Cowboys.
Oh, they got a lot of restaurants there. Huh?
What?
So guess what? My daughter is March 6th too.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
I'm swimming with the fishes.
That's cool though, because I'm 369, and those are like really special numbers too. That's
and I'm
cool.
also into astrology as well, like very into it, to the point that I probably should do readings at this point.
Well, I don't like professionally do them, but I do them at my house every day. I love it. Every single morning I wake up and
I'm sure if your friends knew about it, they would ask you to do their readings too.
No, they do. But
Why are you guys so into astrology? How do you use it?
like interesting to see how, like, for one, people interact, but how like there's a lot of like similar, like obviously everybody's different, you know, everybody has their own thing, but it's interesting to see like similar traits among people, you know. Like I'm sure you're very like easygoing, like both of you guys like go with the flow, kind of just like here for a good time, not a long time, like let's just, you know, it's all good. But then like when you have to, you know, stand up for yourself, and you know, so it's like, you know, like a fish.
Yeah, my dad is the most laid back person I've ever met. It wasn't until recently as an adult that I've seen him like be stern about things, and then I realized, so he wasn't always laid back. He was always like in the background making sure things were the way that he wanted. But I never really realized that like he always has been able to take control of situations and get things done in a timely fashion. He's always on time for everything. So
was my dad.
I'm realizing as an adult that I didn't realize as a child. Like, ew.
Yeah, a lot of things that go into being on time. Are you on time? Because I'm horrible with time, so that can't be a Pisces thing. That's a generational difference.
Pisces thing. He's a Leo rising.
Oh God! Well, that's why. Jeez. Yeah. What is your stuff?
So I'm a Scorpio moon and I think I'm a Virgo rising.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I'm a Scorpio rising and a Capricorn moon. Yeah, those are all good. And then I found out my dad yesterday. I did his actually. He's like all Scorpio. He's barely a Libra by one day. Yeah, he's all Scorpio. And then he's a Scorpio and then a moon Scorpio. There's a lot of Scorpio in there.
My daughter is similar to you. She's a Capricorn moon, but her rising is a Virgo. She's kind of real chill, but she's like
perfect. She's like a smart little kid. Yeah, she's definitely like a perfect little girl. That's so
extremely girly.
How has she been during this? Has she been like super bored or?
She misses school. She misses her friends.
Yeah, that's been a big thing I've seen with kids. Like they like, I don't know. I feel like when we were kids, like, I don't know, it was so much easier to entertain yourself with things. But now like kids are like, so like, I'm bored. It's like, go outside. Here's a pen. Go, like go find something.
You know what I noticed about Sage? She, from an early age, her concentration level is so high. Like when she was like 2 years old, I would call her name, and she was focused on whatever she was doing and wouldn't blink even, and wouldn't even like
acknowledge him.
Acknowledge. I thought, can she hear? You know, but she's like really, really focused type of person, surgeon or something. Because like, she would focus so long on stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That's not the Pisces.
Touch back on something that your dad was originally speaking about as far as our generations being different and like older generations being blamed for things. I can say that I have some of those feelings about certain specific things. I feel as though older generations didn't have certain knowledge that we did or weren't educated about certain word, or that we are rather. So I feel like we're kind of getting the brunt of a lot of stuff. Yeah, and then as far as us dealing with the pandemic, I know that they may have. I don't have from like personal knowledge what they dealt with as far as something similar to this, but I don't think anyone their age was younger than you and I, like say like 14 to 18, dealing with something like this. Like,
well, no one's dealt with something like this.
Feel about having to be in the house and having to be basically mandated to wear masks and just to do certain specific things. I don't think that their generation experienced it.
No one's experienced that since 1918. So
exactly. So this is something brand new.
Well, it's not brand new, but it's been the last generation that experienced this would have been my grandmother's generation.
Well, it's brand new for us, for anybody in our lifetime. Like, I don't think anybody is still 1918. What is that? Almost like 100 years, 102.
I mean, that also is not entirely true. It's brand new. It's brand new for people in America, but there are people in other parts of the world that have experienced this kind of a problem, like in Africa, and there are raging diseases that have happened during our generation and throughout that time period. But we're very isolated from that in this country.
Yeah. Ebola? Was that something?
Well, there's Ebola, and there was, there were.
I remember that. I was in sixth grade.
Yeah, that was a big, like, I mean, I guess not that it was a joke, but it wasn't like it was just like a pig, like everybody.
No, it was a joke. It was a joke because when I came here, I moved to Philadelphia. They assumed my nationality and told me that I was Hispanic and told me that I brought swine flu to Philadelphia. In sixth grade. That's how the sixth graders like interacted with each other.
And you were like, no.
I'm like,
I'm not.
Like
sixth grader.
Yeah, they were a little rough here in Philly.
Yeah, sixth graders are awful. Sorry for all the sixth graders in the world, but it's made fun of so much in sixth grade.
In many parts of the world, there's so much poverty and malnutrition that there are levels of mortality that are much higher than what we're experiencing with the pandemic, and so, but I'm just putting it in context that we're experiencing something like you guys say for the first time, but it's not unique. It's you can go to many parts of the world and things are much rougher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That also just shows too with like this country, we're so like focused on ourselves that we don't like ever take a step back when like other countries will support this country and things, like with all the like protests going on and all the Black Lives Matter, so many other countries have like started supporting this country and like protesting other countries. But if some other country had some like big issue going on, Americans wouldn't do anything.
We'd invade.
Yeah, especially with this guy right now, like nothing would happen well.
Hey Ben, when we were in high school, remember Biafra?
Biafra. Oh yeah, that was.
Remember that it was.
It
was like a
starvation.
Starvation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Starvation. I mean, and that still goes on today. Like you say, it's like I was in the military, right? And it's like I went to Peru. Water, brown water, and green water. Everybody had tapeworms.
Yeah.
Everybody had tapeworms. They had green water and brown water. That's all they drank. So, I mean, we're blessed. We're blessed here.
Emma, you lived in Peru for a little while, right?
That's a really big exaggeration. No, I did not live in Peru for a little while.
A couple of weeks. You visited it.
I went there, yeah. But I wasn't in the military. I wasn't drinking brown and green water.
But you helped build a school, didn't you?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, cafeteria for orphanage, but similar to school. Yeah. But that was in the mountains too, yeah.
And did they have water problems there?
Yeah, we were really high up. We were like, the sky was like right there. It was like stars were huge. It was beautiful. It looked like you could like reach up and like grab a shooting star. That was beautiful. That was a really beautiful experience to do. But which water did you drink, green or brown?
We had our own water, we potable, they supplied that for us.
Yeah.
But, it's really sad how blessed our country is. And it's like Ben said, it's like kind of like isolated here, and like you said, Emma, if something else happens in the world, what do we do? So it's just now, I know there's a lot of organizations that send people just like a Peace Corps type of thing. People do go and they make schools, or they go and drill wells, and there's a lot of goodwill, and that's what we're missing. It's not a lot of empathy here. I mean, look at the guy that's in office now, right? Everybody talks about him not having empathy. Well, I'm glad his niece came out with the story. I mean, his father kicked his ass all the time. You know, I mean, his father made him the way he is, and he just has no empathy for anybody. And it turns into some kind of antisocial type of behavior he has, whatever is wrong with him. And I just can't believe it. I just can't believe that he's in office representing us. We don't act like that. I know some people do, but most people don't act like that. Most people don't act like that. And he says what he wants to say, and it's just like, man, where is this coming from?
Well, I'd say two things. One is, America actually does tons and tons of stuff all around the world. And it may be financially does more than any other country. The thing is that it's not always good. It's not always what people want.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
There's all these unintended consequences. And there's also all these inbuilt interests, So America and American companies will do things, but it's for the purpose of selling things and power, and so we have an enormous influence throughout the world, but it's not always what people want. And then I'd say one other thing, which is everyone talks about Donald Trump's father, Fred, but one of the things that I study is personality styles, and he's got a personality style that's much more a function of his early childhood relationship to his mother, which you never hear about. And
never hear about his mother.
Yeah. So my last podcast interview, who's up now, a fellow named Wieland Wagner, who's a correspondent for Der Spiegel in Germany. He's reading the book, and I told him this. I said, well, I'd be really curious to hear what Mary Trump has to say about his mother. And guess what? His mother, essentially, he had a relationship of rejection with his mother, where his mother, I think, was sick. There was she was absent. She did not treat him like a child, like a son. It sounds like she was not there for him at all. And so the father, who sounds like he had pretty rough character, went in to fill the void. But it's not just that. I
think his mother went to an asylum or something.
Asylum, something like that. So So when you look at a man like Donald Trump, I'm not saying you need to. If you're saying he lacks empathy, if you want to empathize with where he's coming from at all, he's coming from a childhood of deprivation of the nurturer, and this is the personality style that's produced from that, which is somebody. It's called an 8 in the Enneagram, or the boss, or the challenger. It's someone who his whole personality structure, and guess what? This is my personality structure too. Wait, I think I'm a little higher functioning. His whole personality structure is built around not being vulnerable because of the rejection of the mother. And so, his invulnerability involves, massive amounts of money. It involves thinking everyone's out to cheat him. It involves his kind of killer competition stuff, all that. That's all the gap that his mother. Anyway, I'm going on and on. Nicollette,
that says a lot. That really does say a lot. I mean, and he's an actor.
This is the thing when you talk about change, those types of human things that happen. Mother gets sick, father is an abuser, or I'm not saying that was his case, but I'm just saying these things happen, and they happen in every generation. So that's not necessarily. I mean, what we can do is change the culture, and we can kind of reduce we can work to reduce the acceptable behaviors. Like we can work to make racism unacceptable, to make sexism unacceptable, to make poverty unacceptable. You know what I mean? But you're still going to have messed up people.
behavioral issues.
Well, you're still going to have personality. You're still going to have, and it looks, you still have all these things that happen to people when they grow up that cause scars, and it's each of our responsibility to when we become adults to be responsible and to try to, make a difference.
Like the Quaker said, look for the good, right?
Yeah.
Look for that light. Look for that light.
Emma, I'm sure you already knew, but what do you think about him being a Gemini?
Trump?
Yeah.
Well, I think that. Do you want to say hi?
Yes, I was gonna say hi.
Brother.
Hello.
You want to stay for a second and say something else? Well, Jace is a Taurus. Since we're on this stuff,
What's up?
this is Nicollette and Andrew, and that's our
Hello.
father.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Do you want to
Mystery
say?
man.
Do you want to say anything fun? Do you want to say what do you think about Trump? Come. It's not a fun thing to say, but that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
You don't have to. And Jace, we can do a different podcast.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say hi. I'm hungry.
It's okay.
Yeah, he's interested more in
The
in
food.
that, which looks good, but anyways, it doesn't taste that good, but it's okay. Anyways, no, I think it's interesting. Well, for one, that he's a okay, so the whole thing about his psych and his upbringing and all that, that is just such an example of how a person that is not built off of love and goodness, like you're saying, you can become so hateful, especially when you see groups of people that really love each other, and when you see groups of people who do good for each other, and that when you see groups of people who no matter how many times they're going to be broken down, they keep getting back up and coming back stronger, and I feel like he hates that because he himself was never a person that was able to do that for himself. He got knocked down all the time. He didn't have the support he needed, whatever. You never have all the support you need. Nobody is going to have every single thing they need in life. But with that, you choose how you want to go. You can either go the negative route and you can be horrible to others and just blame that just sadness and a dark hole in yourself, or you can try to use that to be good and try to help, So with that, especially being a Gemini, that's that's the horoscopes, that's the air, and that's the split personality. So especially with that, it's interesting how he literally had two sides to him, and he could have chose to be good. He didn't have to be a bad person, but I feel like he just used some people use their rejection and use all that childhood stuff just as excuses to be hateful and to be horrible throughout life, but she didn't have to be. My grandmother, my dad's mom, is also a Gemini, and do you know exactly when his birthday is?
Mhm.
Yeah, because I know her birthday. When's her birthday? June 16th, right? Yeah.
I think so.
No, it's June 19th. It's June 19th.
17.
17th.
Your
It's
mother's
good.
birthday is a similar date, so I get them confused.
No, mom is 16 and she's...
Trump is the 14th of June.
So he's also in the second cusp of it. So he's straight in the middle of the Gemini. Or maybe he's in the third. But yeah, I mean, you can just see too a lot of, I feel like Geminis get, especially they get this bad rep because a lot of time they are very two-faced and it is a very split personality. But then there are Geminis like my grandma, one of my cousins is a Gemini, they're good, so it's I feel like he didn't have to be a bad person, but he just never was loved in the way that I guess he thought he deserved. So because of that, he wants to hurt everyone, and he wants everyone to feel the hurt that he felt.
I mean, you know, Emma, that there are not quite half of the Americans would not agree with what you're saying. Everybody has.
That's fine.
Everyone has good. Everyone has good and bad, and.
Yeah, but what good has he done? Let's talk about that.
Well, in maybe with a Gemini, you can see they stand out more starkly.
I mean, I think I'm
not defending him. I'm just saying that you have one perspective.
No, obviously, and I'm not even saying what I'm saying is right. Anybody is entitled to their opinion, but I feel like it says a lot about a person how they choose to interact with somebody else, and then especially if you look at where they come from, because it's you can, I don't know, I feel like with him you can see he was never taught how to love, so he never even took the step to try to learn how to love. He just
he had an older brother. His older brother Fred, named after the father, was I think 7 or 12 years older, He chose the opposite, and that's his daughter wrote this book, and he was an alcoholic, and he was a airline pilot. You know, he died when he was 42, and he was rejected by the family. You know, I haven't gotten the book yet. I really want to get that book, but the niece Mary, she's a clinical psychiatrist, and I've seen a few interviews of her, and she's waited like a dozen years to bring this book out. You know, because she thought people might take her as another, you know, angry niece that's trying to get revenge. You know, they were written out of the will. You know, her brother had a child that was very severely, like cerebral palsy or something, and the family said that they were going to take care of the child. Then, you know, at the last minute they said, no, we're not doing anything. So this whole arm of that family was rejected. You know, we don't know. I don't know all the details, but from what she was saying in the interview is because he didn't accept the way. He didn't want to go that. His behavior wasn't like the rest of the family.
Well, families are complicated, and when you say, Emma, that he doesn't know how to love or whatever, he also has devoted children, and so it's.
That's like probably another weird, like, authoritative thing. Like, I don't know. I also studied psychology, and a big part while I was doing it was that's when he became president. So I had to look deep into his brain a few times, and it's like he literally is lacking the function in his brain. Not that he's lacking it, but whereas a person that was more conditioned with love as a child will have more like light ups in parts of the brain that love, you know, to just like interact on like a humane level. He like literally is lacking that. Like he, you know. But what did you think, Nicollette, about it?
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's interesting that you two. I think it's interesting that you two, when you talked about astrology, that you're both using it for trying to understand people rather than. I think when a lot of people think of astrology, they think of it as a way of like predicting the future or something. But neither of you brought it up.
Older generations.
Yeah, that's a difference.
They don't think of it as a science. Older generation.
No, older generation may view it the way that Mr. Goldman described, but I feel like our generation does know that it has to do with science, but we equate it to our everyday life and things that we should be doing, people that we should interact with, people that we shouldn't interact with, how to move forward, and things of that nature. I have to say that personally, I don't have good experience with Geminis. I've had a lot of close friends that were Geminis, but it always ended up going like extremely sour. And it's just like, I always like tell them initially like, well, I haven't had great experiences with y'all. Try this out anyway.
But let's go.
Something happens. What happened?
Well, Geminis too, being with air, what I've seen is a lot of time it's just like, they're just like up in the air. They're like in their own world. Like a lot of time it's hard to like level with them. So I think with Trump, at least, that is probably a big reason as to why he just can't even like, from like a person to person level, see why like some of the stuff he does is just like you would never do something like that to your worst enemy. Yeah, like.
Do you think he's the same person that we see on television than you know in private?
Probably worse.
Yeah, because like I'm not to equate social media into it, but if you follow him on Twitter,
I don't do all that, but I'm just saying
you don't.
Because I don't honestly think that he's writing that stuff.
Okay,
he's 70 years old. He's over 70 years old. He doesn't have any capacity to type and all that kind of stuff. Somebody's doing that for him.
Yeah, you know? That's your opinion and your perspective of it. But what I'm here to tell you is that just because maybe people that are your friends with or just from your own personal experience don't know how to do specific and certain things.
No.
Doesn't mean that.
No, I'm just saying that he's over a certain age. His capacity is not what we think it is.
Even though he may be 70, he doesn't think he's 70. He doesn't act.
I speak more directly to you, Andrew. Speak for yourself, old man.
Well, he's only 10 years older than you guys.
No, he's more than 70.
Well, less than 20 years older. Like, that's like if that's like if her and I were to be like, oh, this person that's 35 is just out of touch. Like, no, they still know what's going on.
He's like, not to say that's not old because it's older to me personally, but he doesn't seem to act his age whatsoever. Like, when he was running for, now I'm not going to be brash and say it, but we know what he said during his campaign about grabbing women. What's 60?
That wasn't a 70-year-old man.
Nobody 70 years old is saying those type of things. Yeah. So he doesn't view himself as an older man. He views himself as himself, and he says what's on his mind a lot, the majority of the time. So.
Yeah, and that's like a big thing with the people that follow him too. I feel like a lot of that I'm sure, I would like honestly bet that like most of his followers have some type of underlying like problem with like relations and like love and like learning how to interact with people that like that look different than them, you know. Like, I feel like it's just been this whole thing that like I don't know, they just think things like that are okay because they never really were taught that like, no, you can't just run around wild here, like that. No.
And also, Dad, you said that you don't believe that he tweets certain specific stuff. It's been stuff that he's tweeted, and then he's going back on television and spoke about stuff that he tweeted. And it's like, yeah, well, this is what I believe, and that's why I said it. He backs himself up.
Yeah. No, listen, he's an entertainer.
Yes, that was his.
Well, he has people handling him.
Wow.
That's part of Trump. That's what makes him.
Trying to advise him, but he doesn't listen to them.
Yeah. Or they quit.
You're fired. He kicks them
off.
That's why he's so unusual as a president.
Well, for so many reasons. He's a friggin' TV star. It's like, it's not even like it's like, I could run for president.
Who knew he was into politics before this?
I feel like I want to, I don't know, I don't think I want to I would like us to, can we talk about something else?
Do we want to move on?
I don't want to just talk about Trump, although it's obviously very important. It's just, I don't.
No, it was the astrology sign.
I'm sorry. I have to say one more thing because it's on my mind. I don't know. For some reason, something just played into my mind was him saying that we needed to refund the police and things of that nature. He said, we're not defunding the police. We're protecting our police. It was just like, for all of the Black Lives Matter movements that are going on in each state and then in other countries, to believe that when you know what's going on, he doesn't care.
That's what I'm saying. And that's a change. That's a difference between generations. For example, like me and her right now are getting so worked up. Like, I'm ready to go out, but you guys are both like, no, let's talk about something different. Like, no, look at what he's doing.
What do you guys think about defunding the police? Or let me ask you this: what does that mean to you?
What does that mean? It means not allowing them to.
What does it look like?
To just sweep certain things that have been done or that will may possibly continue to be done under the rug, as though they don't matter. They don't affect other people's lives. As far as when someone is killed or murdered, and then they get taken off of the force and get put on desk duty, or they get put on paid leave.
Yeah.
I guess like something along the lines of that, like changing. That makes no sense to me.
Well, yeah, you're right. We could handle bad cops, but criminal cops, we need to get rid of criminal cops. See what I'm saying?
But you can't between the two when they're protecting each other.
And like a big thing with that too is like, I feel like cops, honestly, they need more schooling. Like cops need, I don't know the stuff, but like each cop should, like, they need to know more about people and how to interact with people. They're supposed to be protecting, but at the end of the day, they just roam around. Like, you don't have to do, not that you don't have to do anything to be a cop, but I feel like,
well, if
more, like, I don't know.
If you want to offer them more training, that means a bigger budget, not a smaller budget.
No, but with that, they can defund the things that are dumb. For example, if you're a cop and you're killing somebody, you're a murderer. That's the same thing as somebody else in the street murdering somebody else. That's being a murderer. That needs to go. So that type of thing that money, that salary for that cop could be put forth towards a younger or any type of cop who actually wants to learn how to treat somebody with respect and how to treat somebody in a way that like will better them, because there are bad people and there are bad people that cops do deal with, but a lot of the people that cops deal with
that have been killed senselessly for no reason were just judged based off of how they looked, what they had on. And in particular situations and scenarios, they were judged based off of what other people said rather than the police trying to figure out what actually happened here. They just take whoever's word for it, and then they act on emotions as well. But no one wants to talk about that. They want to act like just because they're an authority figure that they're acting because it's their job. And the majority of the time, that isn't the case. They're acting as a human being with emotions.
It sounds like you guys have a more sophisticated view of defund the police, which includes just a smaller. But it doesn't just. It sounds like you're not saying that that the police should be that there should be no police force, but you're saying that in addition to a possibly smaller budget, there should be a complete change in what they're trained to be doing.
Absolutely.
And maybe new different priorities and different people, and not an elimination, but more of a real rethinking of what the police is for. And how we want them to behave and operate, and what the rules are. And I think that the people on the other side of the argument try to paint the defund the police as a simplistic budget cutting thing.
Right.
And they use fear to you defund the police, crime will run rampant. That's what they're doing. That's what they're saying.
But it's like, if you really look at it, like, if they're going to defund the police, the ones that they're going to get rid of are probably the better ones. Like, it's going to start being all the cops that are horrible. And it all goes back to this, like, I don't know. I feel like, whatever, like, we should all love each other and we need to all get along, obviously. But, like, that's not gonna, yeah, it's like, I don't know you and that's fine, but why do I immediately want to hurt you? No.
This is the thing where it's not generational necessarily, so that even if you were to put, let's say, younger people into the force and have younger people doing the training and stuff, you still end up with these massive organizational structures and cultural systems, and it gets complicated. As soon as you become in a position of power and responsibility, things go wrong, like things go haywire, so it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. It'll be interesting.
I don't think you want to talk to Emma and I about the government in the system.
We
I don't think that that's a conversation that y'all would like to have right now.
I would love to have that conversation. Why do you think I don't want to?
Because
I would like to have it.
I cannot speak for Emma, but I'm going to speak for myself. We don't believe in the government. We think that it's corrupt.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things intertwined into it that are not being done correctly, that get swept under the rug, and that will never really be talked about. And honestly, I'm not comfortable talking about it on this platform because it's going to be broadcasted on YouTube, so I don't know who's going to be watching this, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I am going to just say that in a nutshell, that it isn't a good system, the justice system nor the government that we're not
Can I ask why?
Well, it's a systemic problem. Like, it's not, because it's not it's not an easy fix. It's not like if I take this out. No, we have to, like, the whole Constitution is messed. Like, everything has to be.
Well,
everything.
It takes a long time for things to change sometimes,
And it can happen quickly sometimes. But I'm curious why, Nicollette, you think that why you wouldn't want to have that conversation with us. Do you think we would have a different opinion than you?
No, I don't necessarily. I can't say that I know what our father's opinions would be about it specifically. But what I will say is it may surprise you, our perspective on it.
Well, everything you've said so far.
You haven't heard from us necessarily.
Well, everything you've said so far doesn't. I don't know if Emma's told you about this, but I'm not just an artist, but I've run for office as a candidate against the totally corrupt system around here, and I've experienced my poll workers getting beaten up on election day. I've had phone messages. I don't know if you even know this, Emma, but when I ran for office, I would get harassing messages on my phone calling me a pedophile, and I had one of my running mates had rocks thrown through her car windows. I've seen people handing out money to the opposition vote. So I think I have a pretty damn good understanding of how corrupt things are in our government. So I'm not.
There's so many different parts, though. Like there
are many different parts. It's a complicated system. There are many different parts, and to change it is it can take a long time, like Andrew said. And it can also happen quickly.
It would be to educate this generation completely. It would be to dismantle everything that we have going right now.
Yeah.
Educate our generation and the next upcoming generations completely to the point that they're extremely knowledgeable about people, human rights, about how to deal with things, about how to deal with people, about how to interact with other countries completely. It would be, everything would have to be brand new. And I'm not trying to be funny, it's going to sound very, very different, but it would be like basically the older generations that are in those positions of power dying off.
That's what happens. That's what happened. I understand your frustration. I felt frustrated like that. I'm sure Ben did too. Every generation feels that what you're talking about. But let me just say that if you want something changed, get yourself elected. Because the energy that you have, because it's like you and Emma coming together and making something different. People of like minds have to come together. These guys, mainly white guys, they're not going to be around there forever. You see more and more women getting involved, and over time, things do change. Slavery was legal one time. Slavery was legal.
It was so legal that there was, at a certain point when it was abolished, that there were certain African American people that were still slaves for years.
They didn't know. They didn't know where they were free, and that was down in Texas somewhere.
Don't say they don't know. They weren't made aware. They weren't made aware that they were free by the people who owned them or by the people around them. It wasn't that they just didn't know and that they were ignorant. They weren't made.
We're saying the same thing, Nicollette. All I'm saying to you is, it is. One of the greatest orators in the history of this country is Martin Luther King. He talked about all that. He talked about everything that we're talking about.
What did they do to him?
They assassinated John Kennedy. They assassinated his brother.
I don't even dig that. Do you understand that our generation has uncovered so many things that your generation has just told us that this is what happened and we're supposed to just accept certain things and we haven't. So we look into things.
Hey, they assassinated Abraham Lincoln too, didn't they?
Yeah, well, that's a completely different case. We all, a lot of African American people believe that Abraham Lincoln was this great guy, but if you look into his history, he wasn't as great.
He was not good. Because the thing is,
but he wanted the country to be together, though. He wanted the country to be together.
Because with that though too, that all goes into like the systemic problems that we have to change. Because I feel like, tell me what you think, Nicollette. We were taught he was great. We were taught Abraham Lincoln was great. Now that's a schooling system that is teaching kids that they're leaving out details, and they always leave out details about all of these people that were great and did this and did that and blah, 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 because that's just like part of the brainwash. The idea of like actually making a change is like the textbooks have to not be written anymore by the winners. It has to be written fine by some winners, but by losers, by people that were in the middle, by people that were on the outside, by every single aspect of it, like for this stuff to actually start making a change, every single person, everybody deserves a voice, obviously. Every time we all deserve a voice. And we have to stop just taking one perspective as the perspective. And when my dad ran for mayor, with that, I didn't go to the public high school. I went to school, a public school in the town next to mine. So I went to the public high school. So I started in 9th grade rather than kindergarten. And the public high school, they tried to put me, for one, in 6th grade, and they also put me in ESL, when obviously I speak English, I speak English, and they tried to put me in ESL and in 6th grade as a 9th grader. Like, they were not.
That's what I'm hearing. I said, so we're extremely similar. That's what I'm hearing. My school tried to
so they for so long did that. So that's 5 years ago. So jump 5 years forward. Now, my school, this is actually really interesting that this is all happening, like, with change and stuff. This is a change with the different high school years even. So my school, it's called the Weehawken Indians. So the Indian is the mascot. These kids now, these kids are finally petitioning, finally making moves to get that to be changed. And it's really interesting. So, like, when I was in high school, they tried to put me just, like, out of the school because they didn't like my dad. The second they found, like, I don't even know if you know this, Dad. I went through so much stuff with so many of the people in that school, authorities, because they didn't like you. I got, like, whatever, that was, anyways. So.
They weren't professionals. They were not professional people.
No, absolutely not. The second they found out that he was, no. But the good part was that, like, whatever, they wanted to put me in ESL. That's fine. So I just played that I was Dominican, like, with one of my friends the whole time, and they all believed it. So that was fine because it worked better than being, yeah. Anyways, but these kids now, like, they're actually making changes to make the school be more, appropriate of everything. And, like, it's interesting to see. I always thought all of my friends and people in my town, would be super like, yeah, Weehawken Indians, of course that mascot should be changed, of course. But it's really interesting to see who's not for it and who's for it. All these people that I thought I knew and that I thought would, like, right off the bat be like, yeah, let's change it, are really like, no, that's stupid. Like, we need to stay the Weehawken Indians. And they can't even see, like, the racism. They can't even see that, like, we would never be called the Weehawken Jews, the Weehawken Blacks, the Weehawken Dominicans, the Weehawken Whites. No. And to call Weehawken Indian, for one, they're not even referring to Indian people. They're referring to Native American people. So that in and of itself is a whole thing. Like, so that's the change that I'm currently seeing in Weehawken. And this is, like, I only come here, like, every few years. And it's interesting to finally, it took me moving away to realize how messed up the system even is here, a place that I thought was, because it is very diverse here and it is very, like, inclusive, and people, everybody seems to get along, but at the end of the day, it's like this systemic idea of, like, that you can say whatever you want and do whatever you want and there's no repercussions, and, like, having a mascot. Like, one thing that when I was in high school they changed was, like, in band they used to do, like, it was called, like, the tomahawk chop or something, like this thing.
Yeah. And
we would do that at football games. And, like, that was a big thing. We were all like, why are we doing this? What is this? What is this supposed to represent? No, absolutely, like, So now it's cool to see. I hope that they change it. Because, like, what does that even have to do? And, like, yeah, so it's crazy.
But didn't they just change their football team's name? Aren't they trying to figure out a new name for the
Redskins?
Yeah, because it's, like, stuff like that. That's why people think that, like, stuff that Trump does is, like, okay. Because there's, like, just so blatantly, like, obvious, horrible things that are just so, like, widely accepted that should not be.
Remember how Colin Kaepernick was kneeling? So Trump just said because they're bringing sports back, he said any football players that are kneeling, that ends the game for him, and then the game is over and he doesn't want to watch anymore. He said
so then he doesn't have to watch.
Like, is that deep for you? You don't get the basis of why, but you understand that you don't like it.
I mean, that's changed. Hasn't the NFL?
Yeah.
I mean, they've now.
They made a statement.
Saying that they would. I mean, I don't think they rehired Kaepernick, but one thing about this though, I don't know, the Indian thing, for example, Emma. I finished my book last December, which I'm trying to get published. And I don't know if you know this, but I had a whole set. There's a lot of stuff in there in my book about Native Americans, and I included a whole paragraph mentioning that mascot, like before this became an issue in town. So that always bothered me the whole time I've lived here.
I mean, it's bothered a lot of people. When I was in high school too, I was like, what is it? Like,
Well, what I was just going to say is that there are generational differences in the sense that when a majority, so my being sensitive to that might have been as part of a kind of minority, whereas a generational difference might be that in your generation it might now be more of a majority perspective. And there's one other thing I want to say, which is, change can be necessary, and it can be dangerous too, right? So sometimes when you have rapid change, like the famous example is the French Revolution. I don't know if you guys studied this in school, but they had, what their motto was? It was liberty, equality, fraternity. I mean, they didn't say sorority. That was one sign, but still, it's we could probably all agree with liberty and equality and having loving relations. But what happened after the revolution? That was fought for that was that, what was the guy's name? Robespierre, and he ended up
Robespierre.
Yeah, wasn't it him? And he ended up chopping off everyone's head, and it was like mass total.
The guillotine.
I mean, if you look at the numbers of people that they killed with that guillotine the year after the revolution, you would never want to have a revolution again.
I mean, look at what they're doing right now. Trump is like, do you not see what he's doing in Portland? Like, it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call that a revolution. I would call that
but it's kind of the beginning of
reactionary. That's a reactionary. That's authoritarian. I mean, police state, obviously.
But
a lot of stuff that he said about the military, these retired generals came out against them. They said, no, that's not. And they want to change all those army posts that were named after Confederate generals. I didn't even realize it. Yeah, I was at Fort Hood. They want to change that shit. They need to change that shit. Colin Powell said that too. So there's a lot of people that have respect for this country, and they're not going for this okey doke shit. They're not going to go for it.
Yeah, but
in Portland, hey, isn't Jennifer Cooperman out there? Jennifer Cooperman.
I know she's on the West Coast. I don't know.
And she has a job. She had a administrative job with the city for a while.
Okay.
Jennifer.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Well, I hope. I mean, we've been talking now.
I already called out of work because I texted him and told him I couldn't come in. I didn't want to stop.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
That's nice.
No, I mean, listen, y'all. That's the only restaurant in Yaden that stayed open through all this stuff.
What restaurant is it?
It's called Crab Plus.
Crab Plus?
Yeah, crabs mainly.
He's doing absolutely all right, I promise. There's someone working right now, tonight, that called out every day last week that I had to cover every one of their shifts.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I'm here. I've been home for 2 weeks. I'm like, they're fine. They're good. They do not. Goodbye.
I mean, I would love to. It's funny. It's like I'd love to be an inspiration to help to say. I'd love to see you all take a stab at making change in the world, and I can still feel the burnout that I feel from trying to do that for so many years.
But we do make change. Like, how do you know that we're not striving to make change? How do you know that we're not making change? You don't know what I do in my day-to-day. I make change every day.
I didn't imply you weren't.
The story's not over. The story's not over.
I didn't mean to imply that you weren't. Was meant to say that as a old fogey, I hope you don't feel like we're standing in your way, and I would want you to feel that we're supporting you.
We don't feel like y'all are standing in our way. We just would rather have your support at every angle rather than feeling like maybe certain things that we disagree with or certain things that we feel that y'all feel like because you've already experienced them at our age that they differ. And they don't really differ, and if anything, things have gotten worse.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
we need your support all the way around 50% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Things that y'all may not feel comfortable doing that our generation is going to do. Mm-hmm. because we're not accepting certain things, and we will not accept certain things from certain people. It's just not going to happen anymore. We're not necessarily to say that your generation was like, y'all are more so. I feel like my dad's generation is like kind of like turn the other cheek. It'll be okay. We're gonna take it. It'll be fine. Things will work themselves out. I don't agree with that. You have to make change if you want change.
I agree with you.
Me too.
On the other hand, I also don't want to be told I cannot disagree. I want to be free to support you 100% and to disagree whenever the hell I want to.
Yeah, of course.
And I also think, I was hard charging, and I feel like I got beaten down.
I mean, but there's things like I think within generations and change and stuff, like, and this especially with like the pandemic and Corona, like this is a whole other special kind of situation. But I feel like there's things that each generation could like play their part in. For example, but I think like for protesting, for example, to be in like the front line of a protest, yeah, I personally would say it's probably better for the older people to stay home for their own safety, not just for Corona, but for the tear gassing, for the rubber bullets, for these bricks, for everything, like for that type of safety. But like in that sense, so like let's say if we're going to be out in the streets protesting, you guys should be writing letters. You should be making like fundraise, like there's different ways to make change happen that each generation could still do. Like if we're going to be in the front and we're going to be the ones taking like a stance actually in it, like you guys could do more behind the scenes stuff. So that's, I don't know, I mean everybody I think can play into it. It doesn't have to be the same role, but like as long as, I mean, I feel like if we all have a common goal, like we should all be able to make it work. Like,
how about we make some podcasts?
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah.
Does that help?
Hey, listen, you want to enroll
anymore.
You want to enroll people. You gotta let them know what's going on. Information is key to success. You need a podcast.
There's so many things.
That's the other thing. There's like petition, like literally I feel like every single day I'm signing at least like 5 petitions that I just see that I'm like, perfect. You don't have to do anything. You put your name, where you're from, and your address or your email. Like, those types of things are so easy. And that's a problem though, a lot. That is something with our people, with our generation. What I would say personally, what I've seen is people think, oh, it doesn't matter if I do it. It doesn't matter if I vote. But if then there's 20 people that are like that, 200,000 people that are like that, then all of those people are not counted for.
That's why we're in the predicament that we're in right now.
And
I literally felt that during the last presidential election. I heard everyone my age saying it'll be fine.
Me too. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, same. And me too. And the other thing is for the groups that are underrepresented, that are just unaware. It's like what you were saying about the free slaves, how they didn't know. No, they did. They were unaware. It's about all these other groups of people that are unaware, not because they want to be unaware, but because they're left in the darkness. Like, for example, like, I know, okay, so like he was saying I want to be a teacher. I want to be an ESL teacher. I speak Spanish. I've been doing a lot of like ESL work the whole time I've been in New Orleans. And something that I have seen so much is just like people want to help and people want to do things, but this country is so English oriented, and they just forget that like this country is not an English, it is, but like there's so many languages spoken. Like there's so many languages that are just like underrepresented that people just like don't even think about, like, hey, maybe this person would want to sign this petition, but since it's only in English, they're not going to sign it. They don't know what, like we need to be able to like include every single type of person as well,
So you got to meet them where they're at, because, people, it's like door to door. You got to be like a salesman, If you want to enroll people, you got to knock on every door. And that same conversation, you're listening, but that same conversation that you have, what are you selling today? You got to hit every door.
Yeah.
Nicollette, can I let you have the last word? What I want to hear is, how do you think our generation, can support your generation? How can we support you?
Well, can I think for a moment? I think if certain things are brought to your attention, just become a part of the conversation. Educate yourself as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
What else? If we send you petitions that we're interested in passing, research them as much as you like, read into them, sign them if you feel the need, and then just continue to spread the information to your groups of friends that you know are uneducated, that have no knowledge of really what's going on. I think once we as your children educate you, and then you learn about things from your own perspective, that you reach out to certain specific groups that you're involved with, that you know can make changes and that can actively support you, that y'all take those necessary steps, because it's not just about you and what you can do with us and for us, but what everyone can do, more so than anything else.
Thank you. Well, and thank you all for joining the Nature Breakthroughs podcast. Anyone have any other final words they want to make before we sign off?
It was very
nice. Want to be free.
Just want to be free.
I would say also with that, like, just don't assume that you know everything. I would say keep your minds open. Always be willing to accept something. Always be willing to hear something. Always be willing to realize, yeah, we're kids and blah, 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 blah. Now we're in our 20s now. We're grown. Like, we're getting old. We're getting adult. Like, 30, like, I pay my bills. Like, come on. I deserve the same. If I send you something, don't just assume it's stupid, you know?
All right, well, I'm expecting to see things in my inbox from both of y'all.
Yeah.
You'll be hard pressed to keep up with your dad. That's all I can say, Nicollette. He sends 20 things to me every day. So
he sends me stuff all day too.
All right, well, good, great to talk to y'all. Thank you so much for joining the podcast, and stay wild.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Emma.
Yeah, you guys too.
Thanks for listening to the Nature Breakthroughs podcast with Dr. Wild Ben Goldman. To discover what you need for personal, organizational, and societal change, get your free download of 3 ancient rituals smart entrepreneurs use to bounce back from shifts in the market and inside themselves. Go to www.naturebreakthroughs.com.